Hello and welcome to this is something new we're going to start doing. This we're going to call this Who is JROCK? That's me. Now, um, why we're going to be doing this? We're going to be having these conversations, and there's going to be several of them leading up to August 2nd, because, folks, August 2nd is the 1 year anniversary when we first launched JRock's Babylon. That's our channel here up on YouTube, and where all our you can find all our shows. And let me tell you about a little who JRock is now. I've been conducting interviews with various bands and musicians for the last 17 years, and started doing it 17 years ago on somebody else's site. Chris was the name of the site, and the owner of the site I met on MySpace of all places, and the thing it was is he saw some interviews I'd been doing old school email type of interviews at the time, which was kind of the latest fad, where you would get somebody's email address, you'd email them a set of questions, and when they had time, they'd fire back their responses, and you'd post it up on your MySpace page. Well, after meeting on MySpace, Facebook became the next big thing, and eventually MySpace just vanished and disappeared. But we continued working together for the next 17 years, and it was a great, great learning experience. I will tell you guys that. And it's kind of as great as it was. I will be honest. It was really fun for the first 16 years. Like with so many things in life, though, the last year things really kind of took a turn for the worse. I really don't know why, but the guy that owned the site, he just became a little more controlling, a little more demanding. We don't really have to get in all that. We can get into that future chapters of these conversations. We're calling this Who is JRock? And I'll tell you why we're calling it that. Because again, everything kind of happens for a reason. Last year, starting like June, July, for the whole year, like I said, at Catacris, the guy who owned the site, he really kind of started to really change for the first time, became very, very demanding, very, very controlling. Got to the point where it was no longer any fun. But I will say, I have no regrets because Catacris was great for the first 16 years, and even as things started to go sour, I could feel that the end was near, and so I started thinking about what was going to come next, because I really much enjoyed doing these interviews, and I wasn't going to stop. And I'd been urged by somebody a publicist that I worked with for 16 of those years at Catacris, and he really urged me, Jason, you do great interviews. I really urge you to go out and do your own thing. Well, when it got to not be any fun anymore, I started knowing that I was going to launch my own site eventually and do what we're doing now. But I had to be pushed a little. And it got to the point where it was no longer fun. And so eventually, me and Catacris went our separate ways. Very sad, like I said, for 16 out of 17 years. It was fun, it's productive, but it just got to a point where it wasn't. But now let me tell you about right as I know at the time, my time at Catacris is nearing an end. I start thinking about what I'm going to do next. Okay. Now, first thing I start thinking about is I got to tell you guys too. I had to really educate myself if I was going to do this, because unlike the person who owned Catacris, the site owner, he handled a lot of the. I'm not going to say a lot. He handled all the technical aspects of putting the interviews and the shows together, posting them up on the site. And I really depended on that. And he provided me a great opportunity. He provided me his site where I became really for the whole 17 years we worked at. I was the face and the voice of Catacris. I was the one everybody saw when they tuned in to watch the interviews and stuff. And it went from being a site where we did email type interviews, like I said, to eventually we're doing audio recordings, where I had a digital recorder and I would record the interviews I was doing. Most interviews were anywhere from 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe an hour at the most. And what used to make it real fun is they were totally unedited interviews. Um, and we did it totally. We did not go back and edit anything, and I like that because people could hear the interview in its entirety the way it was recorded. So, nobody could really accuse us of changing their words or anything like that, and it just became how we did things. But again, I was not a technical genius. I still not. But once I realized I was going to launch my own site, I got to be honest with you guys. Up until last August, I didn't even know how to upload, record a video. Well, I knew how to record a video on Zoom and stuff, but I didn't know how to upload it to YouTube or anything because I depended on the guy that owned the site. That was his job, so to speak. That I would send him the files and he'd upload everything to his YouTube channel, and then people would watch the programming. And but I really educated myself. I went and watched YouTube videos on how to do it. It seems so funny now that not knowing how to even upload a video to YouTube. But again, it's something I had to educate myself if I was serious about launching my own site, which I'm so glad I did. In fact, before me and Chaotic Risks officially parted ways, once I educated myself how to upload a video, I'm like, okay, I got to record something on my own and I got to try to upload it, create a YouTube page of my own, and try to upload it there and see that it works before I go live, before I go official and do anything official, announce anything new I'm going to do. I went ahead and did that, and of course, the person that owned Chaotic Risk, he saw that I uploaded a video, that I created my own page. He did not like it. He told me, "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" And he even tried to tell me that because I in the video I explained who I was and that I'd been a Chaotic Risk for the last 16 years. I hadn't said anything about parting ways with the site or anything, but he told me as long as you're working and as long as you're part of Chaotic Risk, you cannot do your own thing. Now, keep in mind there was never ever any written contract up until that point, and then once I had done that, he then wanted to create a contract after the fact, and I signed it under duress, but I signed it. It got so ridiculous. I will say the guy did not know how to really write a contract. He thought he did, but it got so ridiculous that he realized he had made some errors. He wanted me to he wanted me to sign a second contract. I said, no, no. I signed the contract I signed. My lawyer said that should be good enough for you, and that you can't demand that I keep signing contracts. And it was so silly because one of the shows we did too, one of the things he put in the contract, he demanded that I wear a T-shirt that said "This is metal." It was a T-shirt to promote the show, but he told me I had to wear it in every episode, and that if I did not wear a T-shirt, I could be fired for it. So again, at this point, it got so ridiculous that I knew I was going to move on. And he told me, you got to take your video down that you just uploaded because you mentioned Chaotic Risk. You cannot do that. Why can't I? It's where people know me from. You can't mention my site. Well, again, this was just before we even officially launched JROCK's Babylon. But as you can see, the last year was getting very difficult. So when he asked me finally, hey, Jason, why have you not signed the second contract? I said, well, I talked to my lawyer, and he said that you can't continue to demand that I sign different contracts. The one that I signed, that's the binding one. And he didn't like it when he heard I got a lawyer, and he told me, okay, you got a lawyer, your services are no longer needed. Okay, so that is who Jason JROCK Houston is. Another thing, the name is very important because that is a name I was known for the last 17 years. In fact, I was given the name, but you know what? People, without me even prompting people, after being known as Jason JROCK Houston, people started just referring to me as JROCK. So despite what I was told that, hey, you can't use the JROCK name that you've been going by for the last 17 years because it's associated with my site. Well, without getting into it, I will just say this. I made a point to take the necessary steps to be able to use the JROCK name in spite of what this other person thought. So I immediately did that, and I've got every legal right to use that name now, as I always did. But in any event, um, it's mine to use officially, if you know what I mean. Legally, nobody can stop me from using that name, which is a really beautiful thing. Because in coming up with what I was going to do next, which was launch my own site, I need a flashy name. So I thought, okay, I came up with JRock's Babylon again. JRock because that's the name I've been going by for the last 17 years, especially after somebody telling me you cannot use that name anymore because it's associated with my site. I told them, hey, what are you going to do? You're you're now you're gonna become JRock. You're not the one who's known as JRock. Sorry. And there's been no further issues with that. But so I knew JRock had to be in the name. Second of all, okay, I wanted a flashy name. Now I was trying to think of a name. I'm in my room going through looking at some CDs at my CD collection. Come across the 1987 debut Faster Pussycat album and a recent LA Guns album. Both of them had songs with the name Babylon in the title. And I thought, oh, Babylon. Babylon would sure be a nice place to visit. And so I thought, JRock's Babylon. What a great place to invite people. My new home where I'm going to do all my great interviews and my programming and stuff. And that's what we've been doing for the last year. And I cannot, and believe it or not, it's been an amazing story. The first year of JRock's Babylon, and the 1 year anniversary will be right upon us, August 2nd. So I can't wait for that magical date to come up because we're going to be doing a lot more of these chapters, telling you guys about our story and how we got to present day. But another thing that's interesting about the JRock name that I really had no idea about. Earlier this year, February to be exact, the latest Helix album came out, Scrap Metal. I've been a longtime friend with Helix's lead singer, Brian Vollmer. Interviewed him a number of times over years, I think about 2 or 3 at this point. And before getting the latest interview, which went up around the time of Scrap Metal's release, I reached out to Tom Mathers, the president of Paris Records, another longtime friend of mine who's given me great interviews over the years. And so I reached out to Tom so we could set up an interview with Brian. And I really hadn't heard anything back. So I reached back out to Tom and I'm like, I'm really usually good about this stuff. And Tom said, well, Brian says he's not gonna do an interview with you because you previously set up a date and time to do an interview with him, and you didn't show up. Like, wait a minute. What are you talking about? And then I reached out to Brian and I said, hey, Tom tells me that because I want to do an interview with you about the new Scrap Metal CD. I said, Tom Mathers from Paris tells me that you said something to the effect you're never going to do an interview with me again because I didn't show up. When we made one recently. I said I hadn't reached out to you or Tom yet about doing an interview. What are you talking about? And then this is a funny part of the story. It's funny how things happen because after going round and round with Tom Mathers, we kind of figured out that very much somebody going by the name of JRock did make an interview with Brian that they did not show up for. We come to find out that it is another gentleman I know nothing about that he's a gay individual. And we bring that up only because he also does interviews, interviewing, like entertainment type of people. And I never heard anything. And further research in the matter myself, I came to find out there very much is another guy going by the name of JRock, but I knew nothing about him. And so me and Brian were able to figure out that he'd been communicating with some other guy. He said, oh, okay, Jason, I will very much indeed then do an interview with you. And in fact, when it finally came time to do the interview with Brian Vollmer from Helix about the new Scrap Metal CD that went up earlier this year, Brian himself he was sick, and so he's feeling under the weather. But I had Brian's number, so I was able to reach out to him, and he tells me, you know what? He goes, I'm just getting over being sick, but let's get the interview done. And Brian, like the rock star that he always is, he came through, and we had really fun doing a great interview. And so I've had a lot of fun in the last year since launching the official JROCK's Babylon site. I think next time when we get together to do this, we'll talk about some of the other shows that we've launched on the channel. Now, before wrapping up today's episode, I want to let you guys know, because you never know when you're doing these shows and these interviews, what might come up. Especially recording them over Zoom and depending on modern day technology. For the most part, it's worked out pretty good. But I'll tell you what, today is a great example that of what can happen and go wrong when you depend on technology like this. I was doing an episode of my pop culture show called JROCK's Pop Culture Revolution. We're going to talk more about that show in detail when we do this again next week. But what happened today is I invited a longtime friend of mine, I guess, a musician by the name of Mick Michaels from the band Corners of Sanctuary. I've interviewed Mick several times over the years. Super nice guy. He's a huge talent. But besides all that, not only does he always give a great interview, but I knew he'd be perfect for this because we were doing an episode of the Pop Culture Show talking about Judas Priest and the trial the band went through 40 years ago. As we're doing the episode, seems like it would have been a great episode. Everything Mick had to say, and I knew from talking to him over years and doing the several interviews we've done, two things he and I have in common. Huge Kiss fans, and we're also both equally Judas Priest. He's a huge Priest fan as well. So I knew he would be the guy to talk about. And man, I couldn't have been more right. But I'll tell you, funny thing is, so as we're ending, everything seems to be going just as planned. Great interview, I'm thinking, as it's being recorded. And then I hit, to end the meeting. Then what's supposed to do is convert the meeting, convert the file so you can upload it to YouTube or whatever you're going to do with it. Well, as I hit end meeting, but it doesn't convert the file. Still haven't figured out why. And then I had to call Mick Michaels and say, hey, Mick, something went wrong with the Zoom. It appears as it didn't convert the video file. It seems like we may have to reshoot the show, which it looks like we're going to do that tomorrow. Now, one final thing to kind of let you guys know. So I don't like to waste anybody's time. So before I tell Mick, hey, let's do it tomorrow, I tell him, let me see if I can't figure out why it did what it did, why it didn't record. And then I think it was just maybe a glitch or something with Zoom, because I tried to film something like this immediately following the episode I recorded with Mick Michaels. It kept freezing and stuff, and it wasn't working properly. But I waited a few hours, and I'm doing this now, and everything seems to be working. So I will let you guys know how this plays out. If I'm able to, if the file gets converted or anything. But that's kind of so that's how we got to this point. Launching JROCK's Babylon almost a year ago. 1 year anniversary is coming up. We have so much more to talk about. I'll see you all again real soon. And that's why we're calling this Who Is JROCK? Because like even just today, I want you guys to know how I got the JROCK name, why it's so damn important, especially since we launched JROCK's Babylon. It's all about branding. It's all about name recognition. And sometimes you find out things such as, you mean to tell me there's somebody else doing interviews with people calling themselves JROCK? Well, I've been doing it for the last 17 years. So, and yet I knew nothing about the guy, but it's funny how things happen. So I always try to, when things like this come up, share it with you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Again, I am Jason J. Rock Houston, and my birthday's coming up next week, July 4th. So let's all have a great weekend, and I'll see you all again real soon. Bye for now.